Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, it's that time of the week, a very exciting time. It is the time that we allocate the thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the week. Plenty to go around. I'll start. My thumbs up is maybe surprising to you, Peter, is Russia. Russia has turned out the Sputnik 5 vaccine, which the Lancet, the famous medical journal, has deemed to be the best of the vaccines. Says it has a success rate of 92%. Moreover, the vaccine is a lot cheaper than the European Union and the UK variants. And it's much easier to store. I mean, it's much readier. You know, you can keep it in the fridge. It's also a lot less, less expensive, and it's now being distributed widely in the country. People are getting the vaccine for free, so that people can
Got it.
people can go to the market, get it. So in the meantime, in Europe, people are getting nothing. I mean, it's kind of
Or it doesn't work.
yeah, exactly. And moreover, Russia, again, as you know, Peter, is beginning to open up. Bars, restaurants are opening up. Workplaces are opening up, and Russia is piling ahead. It's move ahead of others, getting back to normal, and so this Sputnik is appropriately named because, of course, when Sputnik was launched, 1957, it caught the West by surprise. West, which had treated the Soviet Union with disdain, was shocked that they were the first to launch an unmanned satellite into space, and caused enormous turmoil in the West as a result. So Russians have pulled it off again. So it's my thumbs up for the week.
Yeah, and it's to be clear to everyone is that it was never a political issue here. It was never politicized. Even the issue of masks during the initial lockdown period was a long 3 months, and we were basically in real lockdown. I mean, no, not a little lockdown, not an imaginary lockdown. It was locked down.
Right.
Okay, and I could go to the shop, I could take out the garbage, and lucky for me, I could walk my dogs. So I walked them 6 times a day, 8 times a day, getting used to my new environs. And then when they started loosening up, it was basically in public transportation. That's where they're going to say, have some protection. And I'm a bit of a germaphobe by nature, so I am not averse to wearing the surgical gloves on public transportation and a mask. But when you're outside, everyone lowers their masks. I mean, you're outside, okay? I mean, and there's the different shops will enforce different rules. The most effective one is you can come into our shop without a mask, but you can't buy anything without a mask. Okay, that was kind of an effective thing, but that wasn't universal. A lot of the shopping centers, they provide masks and gloves for free. Okay, so it was this, it was strongly suggested. Okay. And that was about the limit of it. The very few cases over the last 6 or 7 months, it was actually people caring for an older person, is like, giving them a mask, babushka, put this on, okay, for your own protection. So that was the only kind of quote unquote coercive element that I saw. So, and plus, Russian science has always been cutting edge with very small resources compared to Pfizer and all these others, but they didn't do it for money. They did it to solve a problem. And I think that's a different mindset and probably a more effective one. You don't go into science in Russia to be rich.
No.
You do it for service. Okay, so yeah, I agree. It's a thumbs up. You're right. It's a little bit of surprise for me because I live it. I'm around it all the time.
Right. No, that's what I thought. But it is also remarkable because, as you remember when the UK was claiming that the Russians were spying on the UK scientists, and that they had to steal the UK secret. But in fact, what Lancet is saying is that their vaccine is different from the ones that the UK has, and it's more effective and affordable, unlike the vaccines elsewhere. So yeah, the amazing kind of the Western arrogance has really been shown up here.
I'll keep everyone up to date. There's a number of foreign workers that work at RT here in Moscow. We volunteered to be part of the first group to take the vaccine, and they filmed it all. So coming to your screen soon, you'll see me and my colleagues go through the process of getting the vaccination. Again, just kind of just to inform people the procedure we went through and everything like that. The diagnostics they have here go way over the top, but it's good because no one is tabulating how much it's going to cost. Okay, no one does that. Okay, if you need this test or you need this test or they need to learn more, they just do it. Okay, no one goes into a state medical facility, clutching their pocketbook, because it doesn't work that way here. Okay, my thumbs up. And you will not be surprised, and it puts a grin on my face from ear to ear. The Lincoln Project kaput. Okay.
That was one of my thumbs up. But go ahead.
One of the most outrageous grifts of our time. I mean, outrageous. They didn't move the needle one bit, but they lined their pockets. It's really a disgusting chapter. And if it weren't for this Weaver character being a predator, which I don't want to talk about it because I think it's just so grotesque. Okay, that's just the angle. Have you noticed it? He's a creep.
Yes.
No, it was a grift. It was a creepy guy working in a grift.
Yep.
They always do their little magic tricks. Okay. But it doesn't work, okay? So I don't know what the final cost was. I think up to $90 million, I've heard that mentioned. Right. And most of that money was given off to the partners' friends and, laundering, okay? And they laundered it, all right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and very little was actually spent on advertising. And in fact, the advertising appeared in markets where it wouldn't have made any difference, like in Washington, D.C. or in New York, because they were actually using it to drum up business for themselves. They weren't actually using the money to affect the election outcome where the votes were narrow. So it was all about enriching themselves. And now, of course, they are in some trouble because there are federal issues because they first of all, they published material from the personal Twitter account of one of their former employees. That's a violation of a federal statute. And if then they raise money for a film that they never made. And if they were simply using this money to line their own pockets, well, I think there's an illegality there, and they don't enjoy the protections. I mean, Black Lives Matter, no one has investigated what the hell they've done with all those millions that were given to them by Goldman Sachs and Walmart and so on, but they're kind of untouchable. Lincoln Project is not untouchable. I think the Biden DOJ will go after them hard. These are Republican consultants. Who cares about them? Trump's gone. They don't need the Lincoln Project anymore.
Yeah, but it was an open secret all along. Not only the grift, okay, and I mean, and then again, some investigative reporting that I have come across, and I'm not going to go into detail because I'm not going to stick my head out about something I don't know about because I don't know about. But apparently, there's some very, very egregious information that will soon be released. And I agree with you. I think the Biden DOJ is going to throw the book at these guys. I mean, it was on its face, it was a really corrupt proposition. Okay, and these are such mediocre people. My goodness, they're all losers when it comes to strategists and all of that. Okay, they were essentially were spent forces, and then they got on the gravy train. I mean, apparently, from what I understand, some of them bought houses and residences with this money. Okay,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, hallelujah for this thumbs up.
That's a very good thumbs up. I got another thumbs up, which is not as good as thumbs up as this one, but I think the downfall, I think the apparent political downfall of Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York is, I think, on the cards. We've always known about his bizarre decision about sending patients with COVID into nursing homes and essentially wiping out the elderly population of the nursing homes. But now, this week, we've learned that the Cuomo administration was deceitfully misleading everybody about this situation. So this is, and it's now the New York Democratic Party that is turning against Cuomo. Before, it was just simply the Republicans, Fox News that was using this the business about the nursing homes. Now it's the Democrats. We don't know exactly what the motives of Cuomo were, why he sent them to these COVID patients to the nursing homes. The suspicion may be that he just wanted to free up the beds in the New York hospitals so that rich patients from all over the world could come in and give lots of money to the New York hospitals, and therefore this was a pecuniary motive in this. I don't know if that's true. It certainly sounds plausible, but if that's the case, and he just simply wiped out the New York's elderly population, that's a serious business.
And plus, they gave the legal protection to these nursing homes. So and the staff, the hospitals themselves, physicians would not be held legally accountable. I mean, that it is very interesting. I mean, what you just said and what I just said is a very plausible explanation. We will see. This is New York, okay? And, even with all of this coming out, we could see this going through the legal system very slow, okay? Because it's a machine state, and it basically going to have to be a political decision by a powerful interest inside the Democratic Party in New York. It's a totally blue state. If there's a reason that if they want to get rid of him, they have the smoking gun right now. So, which of course neither one of us will shed a tear for. I found his behavior during COVID-19 to be absolutely despicable. I mean, unconscionable, his behavior, and with Fredo, his brother, on CNN, that was a disgusting display as well. I guess I am just so out of touch with that world. I didn't find it amusing. I didn't find it lighthearted. I found it revolting watching them behave that way. Thousands and thousands of elderly people are dying in your state because of decisions you made, and you're talking about a cotton swab up, Cuomo's nose. It's nothing funny.
And he published a book for which he made a lot of.
And the poster.
Yeah, and then he gets an Emmy, those from Hollywood. Talk about using this horrific thing to advance your career and line your pockets. I mean, it was truly disgusting and amazing, just because it was seen as bad for Trump, because of course bringing economy to a halt was a bad thing for the country, and it was seen as something that this will help defeat Donald Trump. But it was a disgusting thing. I mean, the people were dying, and he was exploiting it for political advantage.
And New York was going to vote for Biden anyway. I never understood this, it hurts Trump type thing. I mean, New York is New York. I mean, Cuomo can completely reject anything the president of the United States has to say. I mean, the governor of New York is a pretty powerful position, okay? And if Trump calls the governor and the governor doesn't want to pick him, or the president wants to call the governor of New York, it's up to the governor to pick up. If he don't want to pick up, he doesn't have to. So I've never understood that angle, other than the televised version of the resistance. And that's how I see it. But other than that, there is no material way he hurt Trump. Okay. All right. Short thumbs up. I want to congratulate Trump's defense team in the Senate for keeping it short after stumbling out the gate. But the last day they tied a bow on the whole thing. I guess that's it. Okay, and we'll get a vote, and it's done. Thankfully, it was short. Okay, and as far as I'm concerned, and anyone watching our podcast here, from in my mind, was completely unconstitutional, completely unnecessary. And what they did was they just showed that Trump is renting their brains rent free.
It's an interesting question because having watched it, I thought that they should have used the time. I mean, my feeling is always, if you've got the time, use it. It's like when you're taking a test, use the time. If they give you 3 hours, use the 3 hours. I mean, don't say, I'm done, I'll walk out. Use the time. And I thought there were a lot of other things that they could have brought up. They chose not to do so. But then I heard Alan Dershowitz in the evening say, "Oh, it was A plus because when you're presenting a case, you basically do it as quickly as possible and sit down. When you're ahead, you quit. I mean, Dershowitz is a trial lawyer. He knows what he's talking about. So, I will defer to him in that judgment."
Speaking of which, he's got a real spring in his step recently. I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, it was like a half a year ago with this Epstein thing. He looked really worn down, but now he's got a little bit of a spring back there. So maybe there's a backstory there. We don't know. All right, this will be a strange one. A thumbs down for the media, as usual, because for about 4 years, they investigated something that never happened. But now we had something happen on January 6th, and we still have no idea what really happened. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, they're willing to trash and trash the Constitution and our rights over what happened on the Capitol, this riot. I would have imagined that they would have 24/7 every single map and graphic and witness and all of this. It happened in public, so I mean it's not like it's a private thing, but remarkably little, except for the same litany of talking points.
Right. No, I think
the more you look at it, the more they're not valid.
No, that's an excellent point. Remember, more than a month has now elapsed since January the 6th. And while the media keep speaking, 5 people were killed during the riot, they never really specify, well, who were these 5? How were they killed? Because in fact,
they die.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're told, some people died, got a heart attack and so on. But the prize, the piece de resistance, was the supposed killing of this Capitol Hill police officer, Brian Sicknick. He was apparently bludgeoned to death by a pro-Trump mob, and this is pretty horrific. I mean, and that's really the gravamen of the charge against Trump. But in fact, no one has ever really made an inquiry about this. And then we're now learning that, of course, the medical examiners found no blunt force trauma on his body, no gashes on his body. No footage has ever been released of this violent mob hitting him with a fire extinguisher. And no one's been arrested. No one has been named as a suspect. Now, about 200 people have been arrested, but we still haven't been told who was involved in this. I mean, given how the feds are chasing after everyone who was involved on January 6th, we're hearing nothing about, well, hey, who were the people supposedly involved in this attack on Sicknick? So now they're kind of changing the story and say, well, no, I mean, maybe it was this bear spray, which I'm not even sure what bear spray killed him. But again, who did it? How did this happen? And where is the autopsy on
the people are not
the medical report?
Yeah, but the media is so incurious.
Yeah, incurious, exactly.
Considering what we went through for years,
right,
investigating something that never happened.
Right. That's exactly it. Because for them, the political weapon is far more important. Yeah, let's use this as a weapon against Trump, much like they use Russiagate as a weapon against Trump. But let's not really look too closely into this. And so no, we don't want to see the autopsy. We don't want to see the medical report. We don't wonder why was he cremated? I mean, this is supposedly going to be a big investigation, and you cremate
his body is
evidence of this the prime victims.
His body is evidence, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So the media, that's a very good thumbs down. My thumbs down is kind of a small one, but Bernie Sanders's antics yesterday, in which he tried to entrap the Trump lawyers by a kind of a peculiar question, asking, "Do you think that there was electoral fraud in the election?" Of course, this was irrelevant since the attorneys hadn't brought that issue up, and it's of no importance what the attorneys themselves think. I mean,
And it
they
wasn't
represent
part of the article of impeachment.
right. But he thought that, oh well, then, and of course the attorneys didn't want to get into that. But nonetheless, Sanders kind of mumbled about, oh, you obviously think that there was fraud. Well, I mean, if that's such a big deal for Sanders, how about raising that issue with his Democratic colleagues who, for 4 years, insisted that Trump was not a legitimate president, but the 2016 election was stolen by Putin. And Bernie Sanders has himself subscribed to that theory. So for him to try to make some big deal, well, you still think that this election was a fraud? Yeah, I mean, if that's such a big issue for you, hey, how about addressing the 2016 election? You think that's a fraud?
Why don't we have a church commission on 2016 and 2020? Exactly. Go for it, guys.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it.
All right, a thumbs up that we'll discuss a little bit tomorrow on Crosstalk, which will air on Monday. Thumbs up to Sergei Lavrov. He read the Riot Act to the European Union. About time.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. All of the questions, all of the issues that he raised were absolutely right. And he's saying, look, we're kind of sick of this. I mean, you come to us going on and on about Navalny. Look what's going on in your countries. I mean, it's like, I mean, the way you're treating your dissenters, the way you're treating people who protest in your countries, and you feel that you constantly can come up to us, interfere in our internal affairs, and accuse us of this, that, and the other. No, I mean, he did exactly the right thing, and it's very good that there seems to be a kind of a new tone to Russia's attitude towards the world. They're not kowtowing anymore.
Well, I think what's commonly referred to as strategic patience has finally come to an end. I mean, I can remember on Crosstalk during our Sunday edition when we used to have Dima Babic in the studio, and we'd always just marvel at the patience of the Russians. And I think that we've definitely seen that change. And it's fine because, I mean, it takes two to tango. If you don't want to have a dialogue, then stop talking. Okay, I mean, what's the point? Stop talking if you don't want to talk in a dialogue. Particularly when you send your High Commissioner for Foreign Affairs a bumbling idiot. Okay, I mean, if you're going to do it, at least do it right. Okay.
Exactly right. And really, you basically got to the point where deal with your own problems. I mean, Europe has so many problems now. Its bungled rollout of the vaccine, its economic downturn, and its immigration problems. And you come to us with about Navalny. I mean, who in Europe cares about this? We have our own, judicial process. I can't just step in and say, well, you release him because, hey, but
then that would say, see, it's an authoritarian society. Exactly. It's telephone justice.
That's it. We have an independent judiciary. I mean, that's exactly what you always claim. I mean, what if we said immediately release so-and-so? Well, we can't do it. We have the court system. They made a decision. I can't interfere in the legal system. But the way they talk to the Russians, where you just immediately release him.
No, but see, this is a cultural arrogance. It really is, and unfortunately, I think for a lot of these Eurocrats, they just don't see it. They just can't, understand that if you want to engage someone, you have to engage them with respect. Okay, because then you'll get a respectful response and maybe a respectful outcome. But if you just kind of basically, wing it, just kind of drop in and, start calling the shot. It's like, it's very much like, after the coup in Kiev, Joe shows up and he sits at the head of the table and it's like, I'm here. Okay, now you're going to start doing what I tell you to do. Okay, and of course, but in that case, the Ukrainians were at that table were more than willing to surrender their sovereignty. Okay, they didn't get much for it. Okay, but they maybe some of them definitely have learned their lesson here. But you can't come and land in Moscow and just say snap your fingers, because it doesn't work. Okay, and we know that definitively that Lavrov used the most stern language I've ever heard him ever use as foreign minister.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But it's also kind of a bizarre behavior on the part of the Europeans. I mean, what do they care about Navalny? Why are you so preoccupied with this one person? I mean, how does this affect in any way the lives of the peoples of Europe? I mean, they've got enough on their plate. They have no idea who the hell Navalny is, what he's done, or anything.
Navalny's a scam artist. Okay, let's leave it at that. We've made videos about it. Exactly. We've wasted more time than we really need to on this guy. But when you think about it, George, it's their final card is arrogance. Because if you want to talk about security, let's say energy security. Okay, well, it was the Germans that were really keen on Nord Stream 2, and now you're worried about, the claim is that Europe will be over-reliant on Russia. Well, that is ridiculous, because you put all of your eggs in Ukraine. The Ukrainians stole your gas, punctured holes in the pipeline, and that's why you wanted a pipeline, so we could have a direct connection without interference. Now, make up your mind. Or do you want to be dependent on the United States for LNG that will be far more expensive? Okay, what do you want to do? That you have an economy of permanent austerity. Okay, and you're going to go to the wall for Navalny to pay higher energy prices? Excuse me, can you explain this? Speak slowly so I can understand. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Absolutely nuts. I mean, given how high energy prices in Europe are as it is,
it's
a huge problem in Europe, how much energy costs. This makes sense all around. And Russia is a reliable partner. But instead, they're kind of presenting it as if we're doing a favor for Russia. Where this is a favor that Nord Stream 2.
Gazprom has spent billions and billions of dollars to build this. They want a return on their investment. Right. Their shareholders want a return on investment. Okay, why build it if you're going to cut off the gas? Can someone explain that to me? Please speak slowly so I can understand. All of these arguments are straw men.
That's a very good point. Now I have another thumbs down. First of all, the media have now seized on this word whataboutism, and now they're running with it. Oh, the Trump team engaged in whataboutism. Now, I don't think they really understand what aboutism means. Now, I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, stop smoking. Smoking is very bad for you," and then you come back, yeah, but you're smoking, so why are you lecturing me? That is a perfectly reasonable argument. That to say, oh, don't tell me to stop smoking. That's whataboutism. But yeah, it's entirely appropriate to say that if you're accusing me of doing something, then I'd say, yeah, but you're doing the same and worse. So it's to keep saying, oh, whataboutism means to deny somebody the right to defend himself. And so they don't really even know what that means, that whataboutism is supposed to mean. So my thumbs down is the misuse by journalism of this concept of whataboutism.
Well, again, we have low octane thinkers here, don't we? I mean, because they wouldn't listen to the merits of the arguments being made by Trump's defense team. They wouldn't listen to the merits. They would just say, it's whataboutism. Okay, so I mean, you know what? It's a lazy man's way to end a conversation, because you don't have to engage it. You don't have to listen to it because you don't want to listen to it. You don't want to engage it. You've already made up your mind. So it's a whataboutism. Again, this is low octane thinkers here, okay? Because they don't want to engage what actually happened.
No, that's exactly right. Because the reason why the Trump team made the point about, well, hey, all these Democrats have used this word fight and have talked about, punching Trump in the face and, beating him up and so on. The reason why they brought that up is to say, well, if no violence occurred subsequent to their use of this word, then you can't say that fight is in itself a triggering word. Then there's no causal relationship between saying fight and any subsequent violence. That was the whole point. But instead, well, whataboutism, whataboutism. No, it's not whataboutism. It's saying that you can't use this, Trump's language as somehow a causal relationship.
And also, I mean, speech is protected. I mean, I don't understand. Most of these people apparently have law diplomas. Okay, I mean, I'm just totally mystified by it all.
Right.
I mean, go out and fight the cause. I mean, that is about as simplistic a political slogan as you can get. Okay, you want to criminalize that now?
Right.
No, no. This was just on its face a farce. It was just a way to impeach Trump supporters.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
And it's a ridiculously dangerous track to go down. Okay, you constantly want to berate 75 million people. Okay, what kind of political calculus is that? And it's not sustainable. And that is assuming that those 75 million people have no agency, that they're just going to take it.
No, that's exactly right. So yeah, whataboutism is just a kind of lazy argument. But the point is that it is entirely appropriate. If you go to Russia or whatever country and you start lecturing them about, well, we don't like the way the condition of your prisons, it is a perfectly appropriate response to say, well, what about your prisons? I mean, are they better? Are they superior?
What about Gitmo?
How do you treat criminal defendants?
How about Gitmo?
Exactly. I mean, those are perfectly reasonable arguments. I mean, that's how political debate goes. Let's say, you're accusing us of something you do yourself. Remember what Jesus said about people who are kind of, who accuse others rather than attend to their own shortcomings.
Right. Okay, I don't know what this is. It's kind of a neutral one. It's kind of a story I've been following. Up until we're speaking now, Biden has not received calls from Bibi Netanyahu, which is creating a bit of a stir in official Washington, as if Netanyahu has some kind of right to be first, second, or third in the queue. Again, more arrogance right there. I think it is that Biden, he may not be playing with all his marbles here. But I think, when he thinks of Netanyahu, he probably has negative feelings, okay? Because he was vice president when Netanyahu was invited by Republicans to address the House of Representatives as a obvious snub to Obama. Right. Because it was, I think till the end of Obama's administration, he always referred to Netanyahu as Mr. Prime Minister. I think it was, they kept it on that level there. So I think, Biden is remembering the slight that the former administration he worked into is that, he better know his place, which, if you look at Joe's time in Washington, he's about as pro-Israel as the rest of them, okay? But it's kind of interesting to watch.
Right. Well, I think that in the case of Netanyahu, I mean, he was fiercely opposed to the JCPOA, which Obama pursued. But as we're seeing, Biden is not doing anything very much about it. That was Obama's policy. It's not Biden's policy. And so I don't think that there'll be particularly bad relations. Mind you, it is hard to think of any administration who would surpass Trump's for kowtowing to Israel. I mean, he gave Israel everything. I mean, I can't think of anything that Israel wanted that Trump didn't give them.
Yeah, but my theory is, and I've said it elsewhere, is that for Trump, the Israelis want the Americans to move their embassy to Jerusalem. Okay, fine. I mean, he looked at it from Trump's point of view, Trump's political advantage. There's no downside for, like, well, why not? Go ahead. Okay. You want the Golan Heights? It's not mine. You can take it. Okay. I mean, it's the way he looked at it. There's just no downside. He didn't look at it from a policy perspective. He looked at it, what gain he would get out from donors, from the electorate. For Trump, that was purely transactional.
Oh, I agree.
He probably had no idea about the UN's Security Council resolutions on all of these things.
He didn't care about it. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's like, what's in it for him? Yeah, his donors. He had these very powerful Zionist donors like Sheldon Adelson. And again, to him, okay, I snubbed the Palestinians, but how many divisions do the Palestinians have? Well, what can they do to us? So, that's it. You're absolutely right. But very well put. No downside for him. Yeah. I have another thumbs down, which is, I guess, I'm not sure whether it's a thumbs down for the media or thumbs down for the U.S. education system, but I'm thinking of Andrea Mitchell, who's the senior foreign correspondent of MSNBC, or maybe NBC as a whole, in response to a tweet by Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was describing the Democrats' impeachment case, and he said, as Shakespeare would have put it, it was full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. To which Andrea Mitchell responded and said, it wasn't Shakespeare, it was William Faulkner. I think she was thinking of Faulkner's novel, The Sound and the Fury. Now,
oh my God, I didn't know this.
now apparently, she didn't quite grasp that Faulkner kind of got that line from Shakespeare. In fact, many of the sort of phrases that people use originally, Shakespeare came up with them first. And so it is kind of amazing that a person like her, who's married to Alan Greenspan, the former chairman of the Fed, a very senior journalist in the United States, would not know that famous line, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, comes from Shakespeare's Macbeth. I think it's astonishing ignorance.
As we go down the path of equity, George, be prepared for all literature to disappear. So no one will be misquoting, because no one will know that literature ever existed. Right. This is what happens when you put you put your entire ideology into this ridiculous concept of equity.
Right. No, I think that's right. Exactly. So when we go down the path that literature only matters, is it how many women do we have here? How many blacks do we have? And then that's all that matters. Do we have the same number of women writers as male writers in the syllabus? If not, that syllabus goes. So yeah,
and so goes the civilization.
Exactly. So any
I'm
more?
done. We did a pretty good.
All right.
On this one.
So thank you very much, Peter. We will, of course, be back next week and listing our thumbs ups and thumbs down. So everyone had better get nervous about what we're going to decide. But remember also, put in your suggestions if there's anything that that you think.
And we're on Rumble.
And exactly as Peter says, we're also on Rumble. So look us up there. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.